Well, hello everyone. Mari Berg here and Sanjay Jaybhay, host of the Invest and Grow Rich Summit. And here with us is our special guest, Jen Fontanilla. She is a certified financial education instructor and money coach. And today, I am so excited because this topic will hit home to me as well. We're going to be talking about how to have a healthy money conversations with your spouse or significant other. Jen, pleased to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, Jen, on the Invest and Grow Rich show. Please, can you share with us your story of how you became a money coach and what do you teach your clients or your students?
Yes. So I've been in the financial space for over 15 years. And what happened was, before, I was a graphic designer over 20 years ago. And like many people, we realize as we're sitting in our jobs, we're making good money, lucrative money, whatever the case may be. And we sit there, you get the paycheck, and you start to ask yourself, well, this is the conversation I had in my brain. I said, wait a minute. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing with this money. The most I knew was, okay, get the check, deposit it into your checking account. And okay, that was it. But there was something in me that knew there had to be so much more. And so long story short, I took it upon myself to get licensed. So I became a financial advisor. And from that point on, because I felt, if I'm feeling this way, there's got to be other people that are experiencing the same feeling. Not to say that you're going to go out there and get licensed, but that feeling of you're missing out on information, that feeling of I'm probably not doing all that I can for my financial future. And I didn't like that. And so from that point on, I was a financial advisor for over a decade because I knew so many of us did not go to school and learn these things. Every time I do a conference, a workshop, a virtual summit, whatever the thing is, I always ask, how many times have you learned about this? How many people were taught this in school? Nobody raises their hand. Maybe one person will talk about, well, I took a budgeting class. But think about it. As you all know, in the financial world, there's so much more than just budgeting, right? There's investing, there's wealth building, there's income streams, and on all kinds of stuff that it is so much more than just budgeting. And so as the years went on, that was one of my goals, was like, what? People need so much education when it comes to finances. And so in the more recent years, I realized I wanted to go back to the foundations. And this is how I ended up becoming a money coach, financial coach. And when I was an advisor helping people invest, I realized the basics weren't there. A lot of people want to jump to the investing because it's sexy, and I get it. But then there were people who didn't know how to budget. There were people who did not have a plan. There were people that had subconscious patterns and beliefs that weren't being worked through. And so we don't realize, we think, oh, it's numbers and spreadsheets. But when you don't step back and really look at how our history has affected our financial decisions, we don't see from a macro perspective how those things in our past affect our buying decisions and our financial decisions that we make today. And so through the coaching and whatnot, I help people do that. And so also what I ended up doing was I realized when I was working with couples, because I went through a divorce myself more than 10 years ago. And I remembered a lot of that had to do with the financial decisions, and there was a lot of financial tension and whatnot, and other problems with communication. And so I started to see, what can we do? It's almost like, what can we do to be proactive versus reactive? Or what can I do so that it's not that I'm dealing with the aftermath? Is there something that we can do so that we're trying to prevent the train wreck that's coming down the road? Because we don't want that, right? So I ended up writing the book, Do Before I Do, that was going to encourage couples. Like, these are the conversations about money that we're not having, that we weren't taught to have. We don't even know what we're supposed to ask. And then how do you even talk about, like, what's your credit score? Or, hey, do you have a bankruptcy? Or what are your spending habits? Those are kind of awkward. So this book was created from my own experience to encourage people that if you can have a solid conversation that's rooted in honesty and trust and being open and all those things, you can create a blissful financial future together.
Love it. You really hit home on that one. Right, beautiful story. And I love that you started with wanting to educate yourself, and now you want to educate others as well. And through that course, you are now helping, not just advising, but through education, especially on the basics of money. And I agree with you. We were never taught about money, and in schools, even okay, maybe when you go to college and you have some subjects on accounting, for example, but never in a grade school or even high school. And I think this should be part of the curriculum. I don't understand why it's not part of the curriculum.
I agree.
But anyway, let's jump into our topic: how to have a healthy money relationship with your spouse or significant other. So where did we start? I mean, what you said about what do we ask each other? So let's say, let's give a scenario. So let's say a couple just got married and they never, so now it's time for them to talk about money. Maybe it's not something that you talk about when you're engaged or when you're getting married. I don't know. We never talk about that one when I got married. It was after. So what would be, where did it start?
Yes, I think it really needs to start early. And I was thinking about this question right before we started on this interview. And I remember thinking, think about this. We meet somebody, and so quickly, depending on how fast or slow you go in the relationship, how fast are people ready to jump in bed? You're so ready to just have that physical intimacy, but yet you haven't even talked about your financial intimacy. And so I think that when you get to a point when you realize that you want to be serious with this person, you need to start having that conversation about money immediately. And you know, that person also has the discretion to say, you know, I'm not ready to talk about that. Just the same way somebody can say, you know what, I'm not ready to get involved and things like that. So it's very important to be discerning about when do we want to talk about money. And that way you can also make the decision. Do I want to pursue this person? Is that like a red flag to me where I'm like, oh my gosh, this person isn't ready to talk about that. So let's see where we want to go with this. Or you can make the decision like, you know what, I don't want to pursue this anymore. So as soon as you can have it, I think it's important.
So, all right. So as soon as possible, as early as possible. So let's say, for example, like you say, there is no like right time, but it's best to start early talking about this. But why do you think, what are some of the challenges that you've seen with your clients when they start talking about money between husband and wife or significant other? What are some of the challenges that you have experienced or that you've seen with your clients about starting this conversation? Why is it so hard, especially for us women, to talk about this topic? I mean, it's really an interesting
it's hard.
topic. Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to the beginning. I think it's hard because, I think it's hard because we're not taught. We weren't taught about money in the first place. So when we're not taught about a certain subject matter, we're already like, oh, I don't feel confident about talking about it. So it's very difficult to know how to enter this conversation. And so there's 5 that I have, and I'll go over them. The first one that I see people have challenges with is financial infidelity. And what do I mean by that? Well, that's when you have dishonesty about money issues. And this is a definite relationship killer, and it's actually quite common. So there was a survey of 1,000 individuals that were in committed relationships, and they revealed that at least 71% have committed financial infidelity at least once. And what does that involve? It could be lying about purchases. You know, how many times have you seen when it was Black Friday or Christmas time or whatever, and somebody says like, oh, I went shopping, don't tell my husband, and they hide it in the back of their car or they hide it in the closet? And some might be joking, but I think there's a lot of people who probably aren't posting about that are lying about that. Or they're dishonest about savings accounts or different assets that they have, or gambling. I had a client who was dealing with a partner that had racked up about $40,000 in gambling debt. So those are some of examples of financial infidelity, including credit card debt. When you don't tell your partner that there's some financial, credit debt and kind of mess like that, you don't realize that you're hurting that person. Because if you're going to eventually buy something like a home, you don't realize the impact of the credit that's been ruined and how it's going to affect you having those things in the future. So financial infidelity is definitely one of the biggest challenges couples have. The second one is being controlling or judgmental. And that's when, money is already a very sensitive topic. So when a partner wants to be controlling or judgmental, it is not going to turn out well. And so, 65% of men and 40% of women have wanted to make a purchase, but they felt that their partner wouldn't allow them. And so nobody wants to be told what to do. Nobody wants to be feeling like, what am I, 5 years old? I can't do what I want to do. But this is also not me saying, let your partner do whatever they want, because it's not that we want the person to do careless spending, but we want to make sure that they're still taking care of priorities. So being controlling or judgmental is definitely a challenge that couples have. The third one I would say is that not talking about finances on a regular basis. This is a big one because, again, we're not taught how to do those things. So when we talk about money and you're so used to fighting with your partner, think about it. How encouraged are you going to be to talk about it? Because think about it, when there's that person in your life where you're going to start fighting, you don't want to talk to them, right? So you kind of already cringe, like, oh, I don't even want to talk about this. So you rather just avoid the whole thing so you don't go there. So the problem is, though, when you don't talk about the finances, it can lead to point number one, which was the financial infidelity. And so you can see these are all commingled, and it can spiral back down to that. And then you go back into the person that's going to be judgmental and controlling. So it just all kind of ties in together. So not talking about the finances on a regular basis is another challenge that people have. The fourth one, which I alluded to earlier, is debt. This one always leads to fights and arguments, and couples dealing with debt tend to have more financial problems outside of the debt. They fight more, the communication is poor, and they have a very, very hard time talking about money. And then the fifth one I would say is failing to set financial goals. A lot of people, again, you just get married or you just partner up with somebody, you move in together, but you don't know how to handle and manage the money together. And so when you haven't set goals together, whether that's you as individuals, you as a couple, if you have children and you haven't planned how to do that as a family, you're not agreeing on anything, or you're just kind of spending and paying for bills, but there's no plan in place. And that makes it very, very difficult, because you're just kind of going through life and thriving. I mean, you're just surviving and getting through, but you're not really thriving to create this amazing financial future together. So those are the 5 things that I've seen couples have challenges with. So just to recap, the one is financial infidelity. The second one is being too controlling or judgmental. The third one is not talking about finances on a regular basis. The fourth one is debt and not having control over that. And the fifth one is failing to set financial goals, whether that be short-term, mid-term, or long-term.
Got it. That's awesome. I think a lot of those probably we can relate to. A lot of those I can relate to, and I've seen friends of mine that really been challenged about this, because like what you said, we were never taught about talking about money. So, for example, as a couple, when do you or how do you? What's the usual, or what's the in your experience? So let's say both are working. What's the best way for them to share with the financial responsibilities, as well as their financial goals? What's the best way for them to meet halfway? I mean, with me and my husband, because we're both working, so we have a house account where we share the expenses on a monthly basis, and then we get all of that home expenses there. But I also have my own money, and he has his own money. So that's our kind of arrangement. But I don't know if that works for everyone. What would be your suggestion on how to budget or how to manage your money as a couple, coming from your 2 different income sources?
Yes, this is a challenge that a lot of people have. And so to give you the short answer, I tell people, do what works for you, because there's going to be some people that feel like we want a joint account, or we want completely separate accounts. The other thing too is everybody has a very individualized situation. It also has to be looked at, okay, is one person the breadwinner? Do you make the same amount of money? Is one person a stay-at-home parent? Is there a big disparity gap between the person that's the breadwinner and the person that's, maybe they have a a job that doesn't make as much. So a lot of those things have to be taken into consideration. And this is going back to also having respect for one another, realizing everybody is on the same team. I think that's the biggest thing that couples forget, because we start to argue and we forget, wait a minute, everybody. We are all on the same team. This is not about us, me, mine, yours, and we're against each other. And I think we lose sight of that when we're together, because money is so emotional. Money throws in all these crazy feelings, and then we start to go crazy and we don't know how, we just lose sight. So I think in terms of managing it, you have to find a system that works for you. One of the things that I've seen that works really well for people is to have separate accounts, but also have a joint one. The joint one, and this is an example, the joint one can be the one where all our responsibilities as a couple, as a family, everything goes into that account, and that's where everything gets paid. Whether it be the mortgage, the utilities, the tuition, whatever, the food, things like that. Then you also have your separate accounts, and you have to come to an agreement. Like for example, you have your money, they have their money, your partner has your money, their money. And so that has to be determined as well. And so you come to this happy agreement where as long as our household responsibilities are being taken care of, then we're good. We're not going to be fighting about the utilities or the water going off or the electricity being turned off or the kids not getting what they need. But then you can also be happy knowing like you still have your money, however you want to spend it as well. Because I think that's where the fights happen, when there is something's not being taken care of. So I think it's so important that we remember that, okay, as long as the responsibilities are being taken care of, we're not going to fight about that. However you want to spend the other money in your own account, that's fine. But that also has to be agreed upon, and whatever that amount is, because you can't have a bunch of money here and then the responsibilities from the joint account are not being taken care of.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about investing as a couple. So now you have a joint account for all your house expenses and all of those good stuff, and then you also have a separate account each for your money. So when they decide to invest, or maybe somebody told them, okay, maybe why not invest as a couple? So how do they get started?
Yes, investing is another level. So first I would say make sure that you visited the foundational stuff first before we jump into the investing. And what do I mean by that? Make sure that you have a handle on the credit cards. If there's any debt, make sure that there's a plan in place to eliminate as much of that as possible. The other thing I would say too, that I think a lot of couples are missing, and especially in light of where we're at right now with unexpected death because of COVID-19, one of the things I've been stressing upon lately is that people need to make sure that the foundation is set. And what I mean by that is insurance, estate planning. If you have an unexpected death and it happens to be the breadwinner, imagine the financial devastation that family is going to experience. And it's so sad, because this is what I've been seeing on social media. How many Facebook posts have you seen of a GoFundMe page? Right? You're shaking your head because you've seen this. You see this GoFundMe page, and every time I look at that, it makes me sad, because I think to myself, these people didn't have a plan in place. Now they have to scramble for medical expenses, burial expenses, but had there been insurance in place, they wouldn't be experiencing those things. Same thing with estate planning. What happens if both parents are gone? What happens to your minor children? What happens to the property? Do you want to go through probate? These are those things that we weren't taught. These are these things that need to be in place. So before we go into investing, I always want to urge people, make sure that your financial household is solid. Then going on to the investing, I think it's really, really important that as a couple, you sit down and you ask each other, what is our philosophy? Investment philosophy is so important. And what that is what can you tolerate? What is your risk tolerance? Do you tend to be conservative? Are you moderate? Are you aggressive? Are you somewhere in between any of those stages? And this is a great question to propose to a financial advisor. They can walk you through that process so that you can see what is it that we align to. What is our investment philosophy? And it's so important, because sometimes people get caught up in, oh, I like XYZ company, I'm going to buy stocks of that company. And it's not just about buying stocks, although that might be part of your portfolio and your overall financial strategy, but it's not the only thing. So when you invest, it's very important to also be knowledgeable about what you're doing. Too often I saw this as an advisor, oh, just do whatever you think we need to do. And I'd be like, no, we cannot do that. You have to be involved. You have to know what's going on. You can't just set it and forget it and not know what you're invested in, not know how it works. And I think especially in light of what's happening right now, I've been telling people, when I sat with clients in the last market crash, one of the things that I made it so clear and important for them to understand is not only the way that things are volatile in the market, that's important to know. But the thing that's very important to know is how your behavior is managed during these times when there is a down market, when there is a recession pending or whatever it is. This is the time that you need to be so grounded and remember that what your investment philosophy was, so you don't start doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, because people want to sell low and buy high. And I tell people, come on, you heard that all the time. Even if you don't invest, you know it's the opposite. Buy low, sell high. But when people are operating from a fear and scarcity mindset, they want to do the wrong thing at the wrong time. So when it comes to investing as a couple, you have to get grounded again and go back to your investment philosophy and remember, why are you doing this? Remember all the things that your advisor, whoever's helping you, what did they tell you? And do not operate out of panic and fear.
Love it, love it. So you mentioned about life insurance or insurance and estate planning. I want to go back there because not too long ago, not many years ago, we had our a directive written, drawn out by a lawyer. A friend of us, suddenly her husband, died accidentally, and she regret that that part was not taken care of, that she had a lot of challenges afterwards. So she really urged us to, tomorrow you go to a lawyer and get this one done. So we did. And that's when I realized that, wow, I am sure, I mean, if I wasn't aware of this, I'm sure there's a lot of other people too who are not aware of this or who never paid attention for the importance of this one. So let's talk about that one. Because for the sake of our audience who don't have one, where do they start and how do they get to talk about this one? How do they get started to bring this up together and then finally do it? Because sometimes we procrastinate because we think that, oh, that's not gonna happen. That will be, and if it happens, that will be not today. So what would you say?
Oh my goodness, you touch upon so many important points in what you just said. This is life, everybody. Benjamin Franklin said, life, death and taxes are guaranteed. So for us to have this mentality that this is not going to happen to me, or I got all the time in the world to think about it. No, you don't. I have this mindset, and maybe I'm biased because I'm in this industry, but I just know that you don't know. Your time here on earth is so limited. You don't know. I mean, think about it. You buy auto insurance. Do you expect to drive and get into an accident each and every time you get into the car? No, but you buy auto insurance, you buy health insurance because you don't know if you're going to get sick. But the crazy thing is, when you think about it, life insurance isn't mandatory. And yet it has one of the biggest financial impacts on our financial outlook, on our financial well-being. And so I want to encourage you, if you're listening, that you have to be proactive. One of the phrases I always use is be proactive so that you don't have to be reactive. Because let's go back to the people that are experiencing death, because nobody expected this global virus to take over our lives. Nobody even saw this coming. Well, that's a whole nother debate. But, we don't think like it's not going to happen to me. In the beginning, I didn't know a lot of people that were getting it. And as it was 6 degrees of separation, and as the weeks went on, I had my own aunt in Brooklyn get it. And so it got closer and closer in terms of hitting home. And so I want you to think about that. You don't know when something's going to happen. So when do you start that conversation? Like after you get off this webinar, you find the right people to contact. You reach out to people, ask friends and family. If there's resources everywhere. You have to find the people, the professionals that can help you. If you're working with a financial advisor, Start there. If you have an insurance agent, start there. Everybody in our fields, we all work with other people. We network. You never know. If you don't know anybody, that's not an excuse. You know somebody. Ask somebody for a referral, because you have to start somewhere and have that conversation, because you do not want to be caught off guard. It's very difficult to plan things when you're in the middle of it. You don't want to be in that position. I promise you, you want to be prepared. You want to feel like, okay, don't you want to sleep at night? Don't you want to be able to know that, like, I got everything planned out. I don't have to worry if, God forbid, something happens to me or my partner, my children are safe. There's somebody that's going to take care of this. Somebody's going to pay my bills if I got into a coma. All these things are taken care of. Like Marie mentioned, you know, you have the medical directive, you have the power of attorney. All those things are set in place. I'm urging you. And the thing that's really sad is the people that have gone through this are the ones that know the heartache and the problem that comes with it. But when you are so removed from it, remember that 6 degrees of separation, when you've never gone through it and you've never had to deal with this, it's so out of touch. But imagine if you had it all set in place, that peace of mind that it's going to give you, and that knowing that you're taking care of your family, that is so important. And you need to have that conversation as soon as possible.
Got it. So what are some of the basic things that has to be included in that estate planning?
These are the basic things. You definitely need to decide who the people that you trust in your life. You need to figure out who's going to be that person, like with the medical directive, the power of attorney. Those are the people that are going to make those decisions on your behalf if something happens to you. So it's important to assign that somebody you trust. Somebody is going to make those decisions for you, because listen, if you're in a coma or something's wrong with you, or you passed away, nobody can ask you at that point. That's why you have to have that decision made up front. Yeah.
All right. So, and then about what you said about protecting your children as well. And if something happens to both parents, God forbids, your children are protected, especially financially. So I totally agree with that one. So for those who are for our audience who are thinking about, okay, I get it, I agree. I'm deciding to talk to my husband or to my significant other to do this. So do they go, I mean, you said about asking your life insurance for referrals or other people that you know, networks, for example, but who can they talk or they can call? Could they call an estate planning attorney, or is that the first line that they can call?
Yeah, depending on what you already have in place, I would say the three people I would definitely call, or four actually. These 4 people you definitely need in your wealth building team. Let's call it that. You definitely need your life insurance person and your property and casual professional, the insurance. You need the estate planning attorney. You need a financial advisor, and then a CPA. I would say those. Start there. I know you're at least working, you at least are working with some kind of accountant or CPA, because we have to file taxes, or you should be. So start there. And again, if you don't have any of those people on the team, trust me, they know. We're all connected. We all are in the financial world, so we all are connected with those other professionals, and you can easily get a referral. But this is where you need to sit down as a couple and ask each other, what is it that we haven't done yet? What is it? And you might not even know. You might not even know. And so you need to sit down and say, like, okay, you know what? We need to do better. We need to do better. And we need to really sit down and make sure, are we okay? Are we going to be okay? If you can't answer that question and you are not even sure, that is already a sign right there that you have to start planning better and more properly. So make sure you reach out to the proper professionals that can help you start planning properly.
All right, there you go. So your life insurance specialist, your estate planning attorney, financial advisor, and CPA. You have no more excuse not to get this one done. Wow, Jen, I mean, I could talk nonstop about this one. There's a lot of things that needs to be covered, but I know we don't have the luxury of time here. So why don't I let Sanjay ask you the last question, and then we'll end from there.
Jen, I wish I would have met you earlier before my first marriage.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I went through a divorce myself, so I totally understand.
Me too. So, what I learned from my first divorce, is there are different money personalities.
Yes.
I learned that there are spenders of wealth, there are preservers of wealth, and there are creators of wealth. Yeah. And when I looked that time at my money personality, I was a creator of wealth, and my ex-wife a spender of wealth. Yeah. So the focus was different. Yeah. My focus was always building assets, buying assets, and her focus was shopping and vacations and partying, and the focus was different. Yeah. So anyway, how would you convert a spender of wealth to at least a preserver of wealth, if not a creator of wealth? What advice would you give?
I think it's so important what you said, and it's very important in the beginning. Well, let's take it a step back if we can. So there's going to be two approaches, because one's going to be if you're not there yet, and then the other one is like, well, what do I do if I'm already married or if I'm already with somebody, right? So in the beginning, if you are single and you haven't crossed that line yet, this is where you got to do your due diligence. This is where I love the analogy as if you are a CEO of your business and you are trying to find a CFO, or let's say you're trying to fulfill that position of somebody being that CFO, because that's a very coveted position. You're asking a partner to come in, you're asking somebody to become very intimate with you, help you run your money, help you run the household and your business. So that is a very important coveted position. You are fulfilling the position of a CEO. So you have to ask questions. And so going back to these things about the money personalities and whatnot, it's very important for you to not overlook those things. You have to pay attention. You have to make sure, are you overlooking that? Are you just like, oh, we're going on a date. Oh, but I really like her. Or, oh, he's so cute. Not that those aren't important, but you have to look beyond that, because it's not just, okay, does that person come in for the interview and look great? What do? You ask all these questions. How do they handle their money? How's their credit? Do you have tax liens? Did you ever file bankruptcy? What are your spending habits? What is your money philosophy? I mean, I'm not saying do that on the first date, but be aware that those are things that once you realize you're going to get very serious with this person, you have to have that conversation. But why is it that we skip it? Because we don't know how to have that conversation. We're afraid to ask. We're afraid, well, my gosh, if I start asking this, they're not going to like me and they're going to think that I'm, what's wrong with me because I'm talking about money. But let me tell you this, if you don't have that conversation and then you end up in a situation where, like, for example, I was married to a spender. I'm very frugal. We had opposite, just like you, Sanjay. I totally get it. You're battling, and then you're in these situations where you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm frustrated. We're constantly arguing. I want to save and invest. He just wants to buy the next new big TV or whatever it is. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're going in opposite directions. You don't want to be in that position. So it's so important. And I urge you again, it's so important to be proactive and ask those questions and find out. Interview that person properly. Not just do you think they're cute and they're nice and they make you feel fuzzy and warm. Find out where their head is when it comes to how they handle their money. But then you can decide at that point, do we want to move on to round 2, interview 2, or thank you for showing up, but I'm going to have to pass and go move on. So you have that opportunity to do those things. So do your due diligence. Now, if you are in a situation where you are already married or things like that, of course, we don't want you to go down the road that we went down. But if you're in that situation, this is where you have to sit down. You have to sit down and you have to have a conversation. But I think it's so important to not be judgmental, to not be controlling. This is where you really have to leave ego at the door and just sit down and say, you know what? Remind your partner, I love you. I want us to win. We're in this together. I want us to be on the same page and try to understand. One of the things I work with clients is their money bio history. And I try to help them understand, like, what are the things that your mother or your father influenced upon you that is affecting your present day financial decisions. And some of them may be things that you self-actualized. But until we take a look at what you grew up with and those subconscious patterns that are there, we can't see it. We're so busy going through life and we don't see, oh my goodness, that happened to me when I was 9 and this is why I feel guilty. Or this happened to me when I was 4. This was why I have a problem with accepting gifts. Things like that, they come up when you analyze those things. And so when you're with your partner, it's important to ask these questions and find out with respect and honesty and being very loving and coming to a place where this is not about judging. I want us to understand where we are coming from. Because sometimes when we're just like, why you spend so much? well, why do you have to buy that? It's attacking. Nobody wants to get into a conversation when they're feeling attacked. And if we're feeling that way, we're not going to feel encouraged to talk about the next time. Like, you want to have another money meeting? You can forget it. You know that person's not going to be there. And then what ends up happening, you get passive aggressive, and then you're sitting at the table and there's no progress being made. So I want to say that one of the most important things, if you want to change this, you have to come to the table, literally and figuratively, sit down and say, what are we trying to do here? I want us to win. I want us to make progress. I want us to have a great financial future. But these are some of the things that I think is important for us to talk about. You know, tell me what's on your mind. And the biggest thing, biggest thing that you can do from the most loving perspective that you can do for your partner is listen. Listen without judgment. Sometimes we're so busy just hearing. We hear the words, but we're not really listening to our partner. You might find out that they are miserable because there's an unfulfilled goal or an unfulfilled dream. And there are many times when you have these conversations and it'll make you step back and go, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't realize that. When we were so busy just attacking their spending. You don't even know sometimes maybe their spending is their way of coping. Because sometimes, you know, you hear about retail therapy. The reason why some people make purchases is because, just like drugs, we have this dopamine effect. And it makes us feel better. That could just be the symptom. It's not that they wanted to spend, it's because they feel better, but they're masking something else that's really a deeper rooted situation that needs to come up. And so I just want to say that there's sometimes a lot of situations where it's so much deeper than what we just see. And so it's really important for you to sit down and find out and just listen. You'll be amazed at what you might discover. And this will be the first moment where it might help you. You know, can you imagine if you start having conversations like that? You will build deeper trust with each other. You will fall in love more. You'll feel like you can open up with one another, and then you'll be on the same page, and then you'll be more, you know, encouraged to make progress together when it comes to building your future. And, you know, eventually when you can explain the value in what you're trying to do, if you're the person that's like, hey, I want to invest. Hey, I want to save. Hey, I want to work towards these financial goals. When you can have this understanding and explain that to one another, the spender will start to see the value in that. But if they're being forced, like, well, why don't you do this? And how come you keep spending? And how come you keep shopping? That's not encouraging. But if you can help them see the value in the goal that you're trying to achieve together, how encouraging is that? And then you can work towards those goals together.
I love it. I love it. So bottom line is, you know, communicating that you're coming from a place that you want to win this together, and really listening without judging, without being judgmental. I think that's pretty sums it up, and not attacking each other, because it's really a delicate or sensitive matter that not everyone is open to talking about. So come from that place and really listen without judging. Beautiful. Sanjay, wow. Like what I've said, I wish we have forever time.
Yes.
Madam
Jen,
Sanjay.
Yeah, Jen, thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Please, can you let us know where can our audience learn about you and connect with you?
Yes, so as you can see up here, you can connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Jen Money Coach, or my site is just jenmoneycoach.com. And so, and then I will share the link with you where you can all get a freebie, which is a guide to the 5 ways you can manage money together. And of course, if you have any comments, you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. It is such a passion of mine to make sure that people have these discussions, because if we can have a good relationship with our money, we can have a better relationship with one another.
Love it. And all those links are going to be on below this video as well. Jen, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I learned a ton from you. I have been scribbling, and I'm sure our audience too. So thank you so much for your generously sharing your time and expertise with us.
Oh, thank you, Maria and Sanjay. My pleasure.
Thank you, Mari. Thank you, Jen.